jawab, kita bisa menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Oke, semoga berkenan ya untuk para peserta dan juga Bapak dan Mas pembicara di sini. Okay, so allows me to switch to English right now. Okay, so the People's Republic of China, hereafter referred to as China, has been an ASEAN dialogue partner since July 1996. Over the years, both ASEAN have made significant progress in deepening their bilateral relations. A key milestone was reached in October 2003 when China and ASEAN elevated their partnership by signing the joint declaration of the head of state government on strategic partnership for peace and prosperity during the 7th ASEAN-China Summit held in Bali. Ever since, China actively engaged in diplomacy and seeks to exert influence over ASEAN as a regional bloc through various political, economic, and socio-cultural cooperation. On the other hand, Malaysia, a founding member of ASEAN and a key middle power in Southeast Asia, has long played an active role in promoting regional stability, multilateralism, and the principle of non-interference and consensus building. As chair of ASEAN this year, in a period marked by shifting geopolitical dynamics between China and the US, Malaysia leadership has come under renewed scrutiny, particularly as the region faced new opportunities and heightened external pressure. So in order to look at China's deepening influence through strategic investment, as we know through BRI, assertive maritime activities in the South China Sea, and targeted bilateral partnerships continue to shape ASEAN political and security landscape. Like several other member states, Malaysia must balance national interests, regional commitment, and the evolving preferences of external powers. In this context, Malaysia leadership provides a timely lens through which to assess ASEAN's strategic direction, coherence, and resilience. So the seminar aims to answer three main questions. The first one is, what kind of influence has China attempted to exert on ASEAN? The second, how has China used their influence on the ASEAN chairs and to influence ASEAN as a regional bloc and ASEAN as an individual country? And the last question is, how has such an influence affected Indonesia positively and negatively? In order to address that questions, we have invited three prominent experts in the field of China and ASEAN. So, and I'm really thankful for their time and opportunity to join our forum or seminar today. Our first speaker will be Ibu Eva Kurniati Situmorang, as whom LMM. She is a researcher at the Policy Planning and Development Agency at the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She holds a bachelor degrees in Chinese studies from Universitas Indonesia and a master degree in Chinese law from Peking University. Prior to her current position, Mbak Eva was a consul for economic affairs at the Consulate General of the Republic Indonesia in Guangzhou, China, and also consul for socio-cultural and education affairs at the Consulate General of the Republic of Indonesia in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. While actively working as a part of the diplomatic staff, she also has extensive publication mainly on ASEAN. Our second speaker will be joining online, Dr. Ian Chong. Can we share his screen for Dr. Ian Chong? Because I would like to greet my long-term mentor, friends, and also colleague who is now based in Singapore. Can we show his screen now? So then everyone would know as well. What does he look like for Dr. Ian Chong? Or if while waiting, I will go to our third speaker, which is also my long-term mentor, colleague, and also friend. Dr. Broto Wardoyo is an associate professor and head of department at the International Relations Department, Universitas Indonesia. He earned his master and doctoral degree in Asia Pacific Studies from the National Cheng Chi University, Taipei. Dr. Wardoyo, or I usually call Mas Ito, has published numerous writings in journal articles, commentaries, and op-eds on issues related to Israel, Palestine, and the Middle East, as well as China, Taiwan, and ASEAN. He also has extensive experience working with various stakeholders, including BSKL and Kemenlu, Sasakawa Peace Foundation, and Laboratorium 45, among others. Can we show Ian Chong now? Hi, Ian. How are you? How's Singapore? All good? Okay, let me read your CV for the participants today. So, Dr. Ian Chong is an associate professor at the Department of Political Science, National University of Singapore, and non-resident fellow with Carnegie, China. Dr. Chong, or I usually call him Ian, earned his doctoral and master degree from the Department of Politics, Princeton University. He has held various academic positions, including as a visiting fellow with Harvard Yenching Institute from 2019 to 2020. Ian has an impressive list of publications and teaching experiences, with the most prominent one being his single author book entitled External Intervention and the Politics of State Formation, China, Indonesia, and Thailand, which was published by Cambridge University Press. The book was awarded the Best Book Award in 2013 and 2014 in the International Security Studies section, International Studies Association. His research interests include Chinese politics, Chinese foreign policy, US-China relation, and Southeast Asian politics, among others. So first, please give applause for our esteemed experts here. So, the format of the seminar that I will give our experts around 15 minutes each to present their findings, to address those 3 questions that I mentioned before. And then after that, we will open for Q&A, and then we can switch to Bahasa Indonesia during the Q&A. Okay, without further ado, I will hand in the microphone to our first speaker, Mbak Eva Kurniati Situmorang from BSKL and Kementerian Luar Negeri. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Rati, for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say that I'm not expert. I'm just learning by doing on my daily job. So I also would like to learn from the other distinguished speakers. Nah, present, please. Okay, next slide, please. So, yeah, My presentation will be consist of 5 sections. It will be introduction, regional framework, a glance at Malaysia's leadership in ASEAN and China's influence in ASEAN, and recommendations. So on this presentation, I would like to add that I will focus more on ASEAN and China and Indonesia's strategic response. Please, next slide. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, China is a big presence in ASEAN, and by being China is very big, so it's they offer a lot of opportunities, vast opportunities, and also significant challenges. And I think now ASEAN is facing a crossroad where we are facing with strategic competition between major powers in Indo-Pacific. And how ASEAN, and of course including Indonesia, saw this. ASEAN have adopted a pragmatic approach on this issue. So ASEAN is maintaining a good relation with China, while also ASEAN also doing constructive engagement with other countries such as America, India, Japan, Australia, and etc. So this show the fundamental approach of our non-alignment politics and to an inclusive regional architecture. Next slide, please. Please, next slide. Okay, so China's presence is big, and the effect of China has reached to us in ASEAN, and we can feel in almost every sector. Now, to understand this dynamics, I think we need to learn from the history. We need to look at history, how ASEAN and China relations. So we will see now together the milestones of ASEAN and China. In 1996, China becomes a full dialogue partner of ASEAN, and the relation keeps going strong. On 2002, both parties agreed to the signing of the DOC, and the next year, 2003, China accedes to the Treaty Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, and also the establishment of ASEAN-China Strategic Partnership. And I think ASEAN and China is growing together economically, so that's why on 2010, we agree for the full implementation of ASEAN-China Free Trade Area. And this free trade area is one of the biggest free trade area in the world. Now, I think China and ASEAN also want to do more on their relationship. That is why on 2021, ASEAN and China agree for a comprehensive strategic partnership. And that is why now I think on 2025, the initiative from China, this is the initiative from China, this is the ASEAN-China Year of People-to-People Exchange. So we can see that the cooperation with China is institutionalized. We have agreement, we have free trade agreement, we have comprehensive strategic partnership, and also multi-dimension. We have economic, not only economic, we have people-to-people exchange. Okay, so now the numbers speaks for themselves. The trade volume exceed $770 between ASEAN and China on 2024. China has been the largest trading partner for ASEAN since 2019. On the other hand, ASEAN has been the largest trading partner for China for 16 consecutive years. And on the investment side, China cumulative investment around $19.3 billion, and this reflects the deep economic interdependence between ASEAN and China. Clearly, China's economic role in the region is both significant and enduring. Now, however, the geopolitical dynamics of the Indo-Pacific is still volatile. Issues such as the South China Sea become the source of constant pressure and dispute between some of ASEAN members and China. China-US rivalry also affect our region, and situation in Myanmar also have effect. Besides that, we have the tension, the regional tension conflict, such as the Thailand-Cambodia conflict. And I think this is a test. This is a test for ASEAN's resilience and centrality. Next, please. So that is why I think what Malaysia is trying to do in the chairmanship. Next. This year, Malaysia, as the chair of ASEAN, carried the theme of inclusivity and sustainability. And they have three main priorities. That is to strengthen ASEAN centrality, boost ASEAN intra-trade and investment, mainstream inclusivity and sustainability, while also they have political security focus areas such as the Myanmar situation, South China Sea dispute, job scam prevention, and AI governance and cyber security. I would like to also share on Malaysia's leadership. ASEAN has adopted the ASEAN Community Vision 2045. And why is this vision is important for us? Please, next. So ASEAN Community Vision 2045 will serve as a long-term roadmap for ASEAN to address global challenges. And its main goal is to build resilient, dynamic, connected, and people-centered ASEAN. And the key issues in this vision also important for Indonesia, such as the support the full membership of Timor-Leste, maintain ASEAN centrality. We also want to promote regional architecture based on international law, advance human rights across all pillars, and to achieve the code of conduct in the South China Sea. So all of this is in line, is consistent with Indonesia's national priority and also the foreign policy priorities. Next, please. Now, China, we will talk about China's influence in ASEAN. Next. Okay. China's diplomacy in ASEAN operates across multiple dimensions, and this reflects a comprehensive approach to regional engagement. Now we will talk from the economic engagement. It's the first is the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. It's became the China's main initiative to engage with ASEAN and also other countries. And on July 2025, China announced the plans to upgrade the CHAFTA, so it will become the CHAFTA 3.0. And this sends strong signal to support free trade and open cooperation. I think China's growth provide huge export potential export for ASEAN and vice versa. And it will be a mutual benefit cooperation if we can manage it together. In political and security engagement, China cultivates close ties with every ASEAN country, while also actively participate in ASEAN-led forum. And on the South China Sea issue, China always support the negotiation, and this is to show the commitment by China that they want to manage dispute through dialogue. In social, cultural, and education engagement, ASEAN, the initiative from China, the ASEAN-China Year of People-to-People Exchange, the scholarship program, the ASEAN-China Young Leaders Summit, and other many activities that under the banner of ASEAN-China relation, is a show, it's a proof that China want to build a long-term relationship and also want to expand their soft power in ASEAN. And I want to share a little bit experience. I myself I received scholarship from China for 2 months in Nanning, Guangxi. It's called the ASEAN Young Leaders Training Program, and they invite young leaders. I was young at that time, so young at heart. So we stay in Nanning, Guangxi for 2 months. We study about China, about the culture and everything. It was a very nice experience for me. Next, please. So this engagement brings, of course, brings benefit, and I don't think I have to explain the benefit. Cooperation with China always bring opportunities for all of us, but there is also a risk, and this risk not only apply to China. This risk applies to every partner of ASEAN. So we have to be careful not to over-dependence to a certain country or a certain power, because if we are over-dependent, we will have the risk of fragmentation of ASEAN. So how to respond this? To respond this, I think ASEAN already good. They have done a good job. So ASEAN needs to strengthen the ASEAN centrality. We need to unite it as ASEAN in facing regional cooperation. Next, please. So how about Indonesia's response? So in my opinion, Indonesia's response is always to maintain the ASEAN centrality. Indonesia believes that ASEAN-led framework is the best way to face external challenges. And second, we always adhere to our non-alignment policy while engaging all major powers. So we are free to cooperate with every country. We are free to benefit from every cooperation without becoming too dependent to a certain country. And third, insists on multilateralism and rule-based international order. And all these principles, I think, shape our our practical responses. We will engage all partners constructively, evenly, and this is also to practice our free and active foreign policy. Next. Okay, recommendation, please, next. Going forward, in my opinion, for ASEAN as a whole, we need to always strengthen our institutional mechanism in order to better face our response to external challenges. And second, we need to enhance the intra-ASEAN coordination. So to develop common goals, common voice, common influence in the world. As the saying goes in Indonesia, bersatu kita teguh, bercerai kita runtuh. So I think as ASEAN we need to unite in facing major power because we cannot do it alone. And for Indonesia, we must continue constructive engagement with every country. As the founding father of ASEAN, we should lead by example by promoting ASEAN unity and centrality, because strong and united ASEAN is the best guarantee for our national interests. Next, please. So this is, can we go to the previous slide? Okay, last slide. So it's looking forward. Indonesia remains firmly committed to support ASEAN resilience, unity, and cohesion. And with Malaysia leadership, Indonesia, of course, fully support the leadership of Malaysia, and also with the adoption of the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 as our long-term guide, I believe that ASEAN can navigate strategic competition. ASEAN can safeguard its centrality and seize the opportunities of regional cooperation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Eva, for the thorough presentation on ASEAN, China, Indonesia, and Malaysia. I noted the main idea is that we need to maintain ASEAN unity, centrality, and resilience. Then we will discuss those three ways to maintain ASEAN during the Q&A. Okay, so now we move forward to our second speaker with Dr. Ian Chong joining from Singapore online. Can we show Ian? Ian also will be asked to address those three questions I mentioned in the beginning. but maybe with some little bit nuance perspective from Singapore if he can add into it. So yeah, we are still waiting for Ian. Hey Ian, can you say something so that we can ensure that we can hear you? Sorry, that's my timer. Can you say something, Ian?
Hello, can you hear me?
No, it wasn't really clear. Sorry. Can
Hello?
you?
Hello?
We are. Coba,
Can you hear
can
me?
you try
Hello?
again, Ian?
Hello?
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Yes, we can hear you. So, Ian, I think the floor is yours. If you have your slides and you can work on your slides. All right. So, 15 minutes for you, Ian. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Salam sejahtera, selamat petang, puan-puan dan tuan-tuan. Saya sangat gembira peluang untuk bercakapan, berkongsi dan belajar kepada kalian hari ini. Terima kasih. Ada isu-isu kecil dengan teknologi, jadi saya berharap kalian boleh mendengar saya. Maafkan saya akan menggunakan bahasa Inggris untuk presentasi saya. Okay? So, let me switch to my
Thank you,
presentation
Ian.
proper. I'm really grateful for the opportunity today, and I guess where I'll start before I share some of my slides with you is to state that Malaysia's leadership term is a challenging one. Not because of anything that Malaysia has done or not done, but because of the overall circumstances in which it has found itself and in which it has found ASEAN. So ASEAN does many things very well, it promotes cooperation, but among the things that ASEAN perhaps finds more, or I see ASEAN more limited, is in dealing with crises, whether this has to do with the civil war, or broadly speaking, the South China Sea. We see escalation happening between the PRC and the Philippines. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that, I guess, ASEAN for a long time has been, quite effective at dealing with issues that are sort of more run out of the mill. These sort of crises, we've really not looked at them since the end of the Vietnamese occupation of Cambodia at the end of the 1980s, right? So today we have a broader condition of greater US-China competition and potential crises flaring up, and also some greater differences between some ASEAN members. So Malaysia comes to the ASEAN chair position having to deal with a lot of this. Rati asked me about Singapore's position. I think Singapore has been trying to largely, I think, lay low, to be honest. It's done some sort of usual kinds of pushing forward on trade and investment, some on governance issues, but it's really tried to avoid some of these issues while it can. Malaysia cannot because it's chair this year, just like Philippines will have to deal with it next year. So what does this mean? I think the Malaysians have really had to continue juggling with the issue in Myanmar. They've had this Thai-Cambodia border conflict fall on their lap. And a lot of this is, I guess, reflection of the increased complexity, complications that have been brought to ASEAN from greater US-China competition. And on the China's front, I mean, I note the sort of progression of China-ASEAN relations, but I also have to say that for ASEAN, the PRC that we deal with today is not like the one that we dealt with in the 1990s. It is by all measures a great power, and it comes with all the great power baggage and ambitions that you can imagine. And that's something that, because of sheer proximity, we have to deal with, right? And so whoever is ASEAN chair has to address. Now, specifically with the case of the three questions that Rati had posed, if we think about the PRC influence on ASEAN, I think on the one hand, there is going to be the, of course, perennial issue of the South China Sea, where, yes, there has been continued dialogue, first on the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties, and now the continuing discussion on the Code of Conduct. But I think, given all the sort of various drafts that have been circulated, it doesn't seem like there is going to be any quick conclusions. There doesn't seem to be any conclusion that will please all parties for right now, whether it's binding, the Code of Conduct, that is, whether it's binding, whether it will be binding on extra-regional actors, etc., etc. I'm not sure, or at least I'm not confident, that there can be a sort of clear resolution right now. On the South China Sea issues as well, the complication that the PRC brings also is its position on UNCLOS. As many of you will well know, the PRC does not accept the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling, despite being a party to UNCLOS. It's not only signed but also ratified UNCLOS. So it claims that the process and the judgment is illegal and it's outside the jurisdiction of the court. Where this presents an issue for ASEAN is because, as well, I guess maybe Indonesia is a bit of an exception, but the rest of us, being smaller or medium-sized powers, we rest a lot more on having clearer rules to set expectations, to restrain major power excesses to the extent that they can, and to provide some modicum of juridical equality among actors. Now, if it is the case that you have documents that everyone has agreed on suddenly get challenged in their meaning, that meanings get brought on that that are not supposed to be there or aren't really there, that erosion to institutions can create an even trickier environment for ASEAN to navigate. So that's one of the influences on ASEAN. Of course, different ASEAN member states we're very diverse. We have different sets of interests. We interact with the PRC in very different ways. What that means is that there are incentives to cooperate in different ways. There are incentives to leave aside certain issues. For instance, the mainland Southeast Asian states, they will care not just about the trade and investment, but they'll care a lot more about riverine issues, or riparian issues. What's going on the Mekong, the damming upstream, much more so than the maritime states. The maritime states will care a lot more about maritime access than the mainland states, right? And so this means to say that different states within ASEAN, different member states, will seek different kinds of bargains with the PRC to forward their own interests, understandably, but that also creates grounds for more tension and division within ASEAN. So it means to say that when we look at ASEAN as an organization that depends on consensus, well, consensus either becomes more difficult to attain, or consensus becomes an issue that you get a lowest common denominator that might be really less than the sum of its parts. So the PRC, of course, is also very active in as mentioned, in the social, cultural field. They're very active in education, in media, and of course, they will push their own narratives and their own interests through these mechanisms. And to the extent that these sometimes pull against the interests of various ASEAN members or ASEAN as a whole, that creates questions for ASEAN to grapple with. So, for instance, there is a very common narrative to say that the Philippines is being manipulated by the United States, and hence all this tension in the South China Sea is a matter of the US, which doesn't really capture the real dynamics, the full dynamics of the issue, and a necessary suspicion towards Manila. Now, I guess this then brings me to the issue of economics, which I think is a much more complex picture than we would like to imagine. This is where my slides will come in. If you just give me 1 second, let me pull those up. Hope you can hear me, because I seem to be frozen on the screen here.
No, it's all good, Ian. We can hear you, and we are waiting for you to share your slides.
Okay, very good, because I was frozen. Let me just pull up my slides.
Yeah. Take your time.
Very good.
You
There we
still
go.
have like 5 more minutes, 5 to 6 more minutes.
Sure, I should be done well before that.
Now we lost Ian again. So,
Can you see the slides?
not yet. We can't. Yes, yes, yeah. It's all good. Yes, we can see your slides.
Okay,
Okay.
good. So
5 more
I thought
minutes,
I'd just
Ian.
share a couple of things about why the economics is complicated. If you look at ASEAN, there's a lot of talk, obviously, about the BRI, but actually, and also various kinds of Chinese investment projects. But actually, if you look at inward FDI to ASEAN, China, of course, is represented by the red line. You'll find that intra-ASEAN FDI is greater than the PRC FDI. And the US FDI, inward FDI, is much greater, even with the dip into balance of trade. The numbers are not complete because ASEAN Stat didn't update the full set of numbers. But if you look until from 2013 to 2022, what you can see is that ASEAN has a chronic deficit with the PRC, right? So we buy a lot more from the PRC than we sell to the PRC, even though that value is very great. Now, this makes sense. It's totally fine if when we buy from the PRC, yes, some of it will get absorbed, but we are also able to process and then sell that to other markets, as you can see from the to the US. So okay,
Now
let me.
clear.
Okay, so this is where I get. So
Sorry,
it's all
Ian.
ASEAN numbers. So I wanted to show you that because essentially the way that ASEAN economies work is that we absorb capital from a lot of developed economies. We then will use that capital to purchase goods from the PRC and then to process those goods and then sell them on to back to the developed economies again, right? So that's the sort of circulation that our economies depend on. With the Trump tariffs and increasing protectionism around the world, that sort of selling side has become more constrained. And so that means to say that there's a lot more pressure for us to sort of deal with the import of PRC goods unless we're able to decrease our imports. That sort of continued sort of deficit means that we have to somehow absorb it, right? And hence you see across ASEAN pressures on small and medium-sized enterprises, pressure on production and manufacturing. So that's the claim of that's where that claim or that feeling of overcapacity comes from, right? It's because that circulation is very much broken. And so when we look at the PRC relationship, we have to look at it in the context of how it works for ASEAN. It's not just the bilateral side. I'll finish up with 2 points. One on the ASEAN chair. I think in terms of influence on the ASEAN chair, clearly, there is a reluctance these days to talk more openly about the South China Sea. We saw in 2012, obviously Cambodia preventing a chair statement, but in 2015, again, they just without being the chair, a member state, in this case Cambodia, could also block things. So that's part of. It's not just the influence on the chair; it's that sort of difference in position and the need for consensus in ASEAN that renders us susceptible to more great power competition, whether this comes from China or the PRC or anywhere else. And I'll end off with Indonesia. I think for Indonesia, clearly the relationship with the PRC has been very lucrative, especially in terms of the sale of minerals and other commodities, and also in terms of the investment. But as I have alluded to earlier, one of the issues also is that the import of PRC goods, because of the way that the circulation used to work and has broken down, means to say that Indonesian manufacturing faces a lot more pressure, in some degree, in some places where there's sort of import labor there as well. And so this sort of interaction with the PRC on the economic front is beneficial, but it's not cost-free, right? And I guess to the extent that questions of the South China Sea come up and relate to UNCLOS and relate to issues of maritime access, Indonesia is an archipelagic state, and that means any sort of shift and change to UNCLOS could potentially put Indonesian interests in question. Of course, there's the issue of what to do, whether there is or is not a dispute between the Natuna EEZ and the 9-dash lines that the PRC claims. So those would be some of those issues that Indonesia might have to grapple with. I know my 15 minutes are up, but I hope I've given you a comprehensive enough picture of the really complicated relationship that ASEAN chairs in Indonesia has with the PRC. I only touched very briefly on Singapore, but I'm happy to discuss it later during the Q&A. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Please give a round of applause for Ian, who has been joining us from Singapore. And Ian has presented a quite critical views regarding China's influence on ASEAN, particularly on issues that are pertinent to the region, such as the South China Sea issues and also investment in economics and also the relations with Indonesia on critical minerals. So now we move on to our last speaker, but not least, Dr. Broto Wardoyo. Mas Ito, the floor is yours and 15 minutes.
Thank you, Rate. But actually, I can speak for less than 1 minute because I agree with everything that Mbak Eva and also Ian has already talked about. Okay, the interesting part is when I received this invitation and the organizer asked 3 questions, but none of them mentioned Malaysia. And yet we discuss about Malaysia leadership. So just jump to the next slide, please. So it is interesting and fascinating. So basically, what do we want to talk about this evening? Are we going to talk about Malaysia, or are we going to talk about China and that we are basically afraid of any particular threat that coming from China? So I think the second one is actually what we talk about, looking at these 3 questions that Rate already mentioned earlier. So the next slide, please. So when we talk about China and their influence in Southeast Asia, there has been numerous research that focus on this topic. CSIS Washington, as far as I learned, they did a great research on these issues. Lowy Institute also conducted research on these issues. And I also noticed my friend from Malaysia, Professor Kui, also conducted research on these issues as well, which is basically almost all of them saying that yes, China is coming to Southeast Asia and they are influencing us. In the word of Ibu Eva, their influence is getting stronger and wider. Yeah, and in a way, I agree with it. But it does not suggest that China will be easily ask or force ASEAN to be on their side. When we talk about ASEAN, for example, Ian also mentioned about this in the blitz. ASEAN is a very complex regional arrangement. I don't know, Ibu Eva, maybe you once in a while you were assigned in ASEAN, and basically every diplomat that work in ASEAN or related to ASEAN, they always complain about the number of meetings that they have to attend. So this is a very complicated and complex regional arrangement. It has its own uniqueness in a way, meaning that reaching an agreement in ASEAN is a mounting and daunting task. It's extremely difficult to do so, even without external pressures. So if we are afraid that China will in a way direct Malaysia or maybe other leadership in ASEAN to follow their agenda, I don't think that will be the case. So that is the first one. This complexity in the decision-making process has been a hindrance. And the second issue is because ASEAN consensus, which is if you put 10 ASEAN countries to talk about economic development, you might reach a consensus. But if you put all of these member states in one room and ask them whether China is the solution for economic development, I think they will have disagreement on that. So that is, I think, the second hindrance if we are really talk about whether China will influence ASEAN. ASEAN as a group. Because when we talk about ASEAN and China, and we compare ASEAN relation with other dialogue partner, the US for example, then we will have the idea that the US is a bit cocky when they talk with ASEAN compared to China. So we then start to make a comparison that for ASEAN member countries, China understands the way we talk, the way we work, the way we made our decision. But that's compared to the US. So what I want to say is basically talking about whether China will influence ASEAN in decision-making process. No, there are two hindrances. And the other thing is what China can do is actually prevent ASEAN from making decision that is not in their favor. But there is a different things from China asking ASEAN to have or to make a decision that follow their interests. So that is my thought about this. Of course, when we talk about China and ASEAN, we will always talk about that China has their own strategies. They use divide and conquer strategies, so they approaches some of the mainland Southeast Asian countries that have closer economic relations with them or closer security relationship with them. And when we talk about South China Sea, I think Ian also mentioned that they have been more aggressive currently than in the past. They introduce salami tactic, which I don't think salami is fit with our region. So I think we should start using the term sashimi tactic, sashimi slice instead of salami slicing. But that's what they do. And we acknowledge that. We understand that, yes, they try to do something. They try to divide us. They try to conquer piece by piece and so on. But when it comes to ASEAN, the issues is different. So when we talk about, yeah, that is also the first response that I got when I talked in Tokyo about sashimi slice, because everyone was like, why sashimi? I mean, we are Asian, so sashimi is closer to us. So when we talk about Chinese influence to Southeast Asian countries, of course we can create categories for it, whether it is direct or indirect, state or non-state. There was a book written by N.C. Han in 2024 that basically identifies in details of this non-state influence of China in Southeast Asia. We always have a belief that China work, that this state and non-state approach work in concert. That is what we think. But my own research in 2020, we found that it's not always a concerted effort. when we talk about China's activities in Southeast Asia. So when we talk about security, maritime security cooperation, for example, we always argue that Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese Navy, they work hand in hand. But recent case suggests the otherwise. They have I don't know if you heard about the colliding between two Chinese ships in the South China Sea. So my point is, we have to differentiate Chinese influence to regional countries. Next slide, please. Now, when we talk about where the Chinese is coming and what they did, what they do in Southeast Asia, we always think that is it going to cause Southeast Asian to choose side between China and the US? So I think this is the fear that force us to talk about what should we do in the future. A recent project from RSIS discussed about this, that now we are not, well, because we always avoid being forced to choose side. But colleagues from RSIS and I think also scholars in Southeast Asian, they talk about that we already being forced to choose side. So from survey, the ISEA survey, please pay attention to the Indonesian case because they somehow believe, according to that survey, that Indonesia will lean toward China. But please bear in mind that ISEA survey is an elite survey. It asks people like me and like you, Ratih and friends, basically academics and all of the respondents that understand international relations. So this is what they believe, that somehow, some way, we will be on China's side, and with, in the case of Indonesia, I'm sorry Ibu Eva, talking about Indonesia's foreign policy. In the case of Indonesia, because we see that recently President Jokowi and President Prabowo, they have a habit of visiting Beijing rather than visiting Washington, and they have a habit of signing agreement with China instead of with the United States. Then we always argue that, oh, we are going to be a friend of China. So that is what we always think about. But my own research, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. But my own research, and it's also a survey by FPCI, because they also conducted survey in 2024, which is they basically, both survey basically find that for the public, China is still the main source of threat, whether militarily or economically. So when we talk about Indonesia and whether China will taking over us in the near future, I tend to say that it won't be the case simply because the public is against the government's position. And in a democratic society like Indonesia, the public matters. So from those points, what I want to conclude in this evening, next slide, Mas, please. Basically, we have to keep in mind that the Indonesian government and the Indonesian public, they have different perception of China, and this will always be an issue. I think Indonesians are familiar with anti-Aseng and anti-Asing, which is basically our public, they dislike China, and they also dislike the United States. So this will always be an issue for us. And second, if we talk about the Indonesian foreign policy, in explaining what Pak Prabowo did recently, visiting Beijing, even visiting Beijing only to attend a military parade, and also signing several agreements, including the plan to purchase a G10 fighters, which is, by the way, the original blueprint of G10 was developed by Israel. So if you want to do a protest, that is the one that you can use, basically. But the thing is, I always consider what Pak Prabowo did is actually his effort to diversifying Indonesians' foreign policy. In the past, when we talk about Indonesian foreign policy, we always talk about ASEAN. So ASEAN is the core. But with Pak Prabowo, we see not only one core, basically. So ASEAN still matters, but it is not the core. We are moving toward Russia, we are moving toward China, but we do not really neglect the US as well. So some probably will prefer the term like strategic autonomy in it, but I'm not really sure if we are really independent. Do we have autonomy in making our decision? So I think I will prefer to call it a strategic diversifying strategy, basically. And the third point is, because everyone talk about that Indonesia's China policy is characterized by hedging or complex balancing. I think that is the two words that always pop out in academic discussion. I have a different opinion on Indonesia's China policy, basically. I think when Ian talked about we are moving toward China economically, it's basically a balancing decision, which there is nothing wrong with it, as long as we understand the consequence. And the fourth key takeaways is that while Chinese presence and influence is growing and expanding, I think ASEAN complexity will prevent them from really influencing ASEAN decision-making process. Is that my time up?
Yes,
Oh,
your
okay.
time is up.
I thought I can finish it in 5 minutes.
Okay, 1 more minute.
Yeah, and yes, I acknowledge that we are in the era of rivalry between the US and also China, that there are issues that we should talk about and we should be careful in making the decision. So I think I will stop here. Thank you, Mbak Ratih.
Okay, give a round of applause for our last speaker, Mas Broto. And yeah, I think it's a very interesting presentation, especially on the significant second two and third one. Okay, so we have 3 questions. Please briefly mention your name and your question. And affiliation, yeah? The first one here.
Ya, selamat sore. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to comment and ask a question.
Boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia, silakan.
I think I prefer English because
Okay,
ASEAN,
that's fine,
ASEAN's centrality is in English. Yeah, that's what I want to ask a question. But after that I can translate in bahasa. Maksudnya kenapa saya sebut itu karena waktu anggota maksudnya salah satu perusahaan perusahaan Cina yang dipanggil ke DPR itu bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia, nggak ada masalah itu. Nah itu ya secara diplomatik itu yang digaungin. Ya maksudnya, tetapi I just want to ask about it to Professor Eva or Ian Chong, because Ian Chong is kind of reluctant. Even he said like, sorry to speak English, but that is what is the ASEAN centrality? What is the ASEAN centrality? Because that is, the topic. Of course, there are 3 founders like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines and Singapore. They all speak diplomatically in English, but the other of course, the founder needs to compliment them and guide them, and not only in English, but of course, Asia Centrality at least need to, the document is English and also in their member languages. And that is need to be research how many Indonesians that talk about ASEAN, they are still in Bahasa, and ASEAN or the institution need to translate in Bahasa Inggris. That is the centrality. That's why I think there's the centrality, and also what are the perspective for the centrality is not even the China, the previous China diplomat, they speak in English to the public. They don't speak the Mandarin. I think they kind of know, right? In Asia, English is the capability to speak it. And how does this thing? The other things that I want to ask a question to Dr. Ian, when it comes to trade, those number, I don't know. I think it's not the whole thing because like there are a lot of things like education, business service, whether including in those trade number. So that needs to be ASEAN centrality when it comes to, it's not that. So that is my question to Dr. Eva.
And also to Ian. Okay. Thank you very much. Dengan Bapak siapa tadi? Pak Matias. Okay. The second questions.
Hi, I'm Hannah. Thank you, Bu Eva, Pak Ito, and Dr. Chong, whom I cannot see at the moment. I'm going to speak English because I'm more comfortable with it. So we've talked a lot about ASEAN centrality, as we have mentioned earlier, but I was speaking with a friend of mine who graduated from FIU in Florida a couple days ago, and he mentioned that he thought that Indonesia and other ASEAN countries such as Singapore and perhaps Thailand, Vietnam should work together. I think there's been sort of a discussion around that, that we should work together and push China out, or at the very least, we can have China invest without being its lackey. Now, as a young person here, I guess there's not much that I understand very much. And so I'd like to ask all three of you speakers, what is stopping ASEAN member states from working together? What specifically is stopping ASEAN member states from working together and actually implementing ASEAN centrality in a very intense manner, if I may ask? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The last questions, gentleman over there wearing batik.
Terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Nama saya Stephen Huang dari IPTI. Pertanyaan saya, kita bicara kepemimpinan Malaysia, tapi kita tahu Malaysia juga secara politik beberapa tahun ke belakang ini lagi agak gonjang-ganjing. Contohnya yang paling aktual, itu kan Anwar Ibrahim mau ngundang Trump ya untuk ikut KTT ASEAN, tapi lalu Mahathir komentar, dan juga saya ngelihat banyak saling kritik ya antara Anwar Ibrahim dengan Mahathir, yang mana memang kan historically hubungan mereka itu pernah dekat, musuhan, masuk penjara Anwar Ibrahim, baikan lagi, musuhan lagi. Nah, jadi pertanyaannya kalau kita bicara kepemimpinan Malaysia, nah Malaysianya itu sendiri bagaimana ya kepemimpinannya begitu? Karena kita tahu Mahathir juga masih cukup punya influence besar ya, pengaruh dia kuat. Dia kan dulu lama memimpin, tokoh senior, masih hidup umurnya 100 tahun, masih bisa naik sepeda, jadi masih cukup punya pengaruh. Bagaimana pengaruhnya beliau juga gitu dalam kepemimpinan Malaysia gitu? Apakah dia masih bisa intervensi atau mengganggu ya tanda kutip kepemimpinan Anwar Ibrahim? Karena ini kan berpengaruh ya, Anwar Ibrahim chair ASEAN ya di periode ini, tapi mungkin ya kalau politik internalnya dia sendiri terganggu kan akan berdampak bagaimana dia govern ASEAN. Sekian, terima kasih.
Oke, Stefan ada spesifik mau ditanyakan ke siapa?
Nggak ada spesifik.
Nggak ada spesifik. Okay, so it means three of you need to answer that questions. Okay, so if I might wrap up questions to Bu Eva, mostly on ASEAN centrality, and the second questions on young generation. The three of you need to answer that question, and also about Stefan, how the domestic politics within Malaysia might influence Malaysia leadership itself in ASEAN, especially with the presence of Mahathir influence on domestic politics in Malaysia. So who wants to go first? I think from Bu Eva first. Yeah, sure.
Boleh bahasa Indonesia aja. Oke. Mungkin saya oke. Maybe I will answer the first question dari. Oh yeah, okay, about the ASEAN centrality. ASEAN centrality, I think it will be, maybe it will be hard if we want to understand, but maybe I can explain it in a way that it's a core principle on ASEAN. So it's a position that ASEAN is the primary driver and coordinator of regional cooperation. So by meaning ASEAN centrality, that means that we are doing everything together as ASEAN, not as Indonesia, not as Malaysia, not as Thailand. I know we have our national interests, our own national interests, but that is why ASEAN is unique, because we have this ASEAN centrality. We have to think together as ASEAN. We have to put aside our differences and think as a whole group in our region. I think that's is what maybe Pak Dokter can explain.
No, if that question is addressed to me, the problem is because I'm a non-believer in ASEAN centrality. I understand that this concept basically saying that because we are member of ASEAN, then we have to put ASEAN first. So we have to prioritize ASEAN. The question is always whether ASEAN member countries really prioritize ASEAN. Indonesia, we always say that we do have our concentric cycle in our foreign policy, which put ASEAN as our first priority. But the thing is, when we do have issues or problem regionally, sometimes we prefer non-ASEAN mechanism to settle that issues, which for me, it is an indication that I don't think we really believe in that centrality. So that is my problem with ASEAN centrality, which is always different from colleges that focusing on ASEAN in my own university. But I do understand the significance of ASEAN centrality. It is basically a complicated things that we created to prevent others from driving us in our daily activities. So for me, that is the merit, that is the function of ASEAN centrality. Whether it works, sometimes it's work. When we talk about Indo-Pacific, for example, Japan came with free and open Indo-Pacific. And then the US came with Indo-Pacific policies, which is basically divided Southeast Asia and also East Asia into the democratic camp and non-democratic camp. And then Indonesia and ASEAN came out with ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific, which is basically we saying that we acknowledge the rivalry, but we want to engage China. So for me, that is the function, that is the merit of centrality. But I'm not really sure if we decided to do so because it is what is best for ASEAN. I still think that when Indonesia proposed that idea, it is something that it is the best thing to Indonesia, because we don't want the US come and talk to us and saying that you have to join this camp, At the same time, we don't want Beijing to come to Jakarta and basically tell them that you have to refuse joining the democratic rank. So this is a diplomatic terms, and it serves its function really well, despite the fact that I'm a non-believer to this ASEAN centrality.
Okay, so now we listen from Ian about ASEAN centrality, what he has in mind about ASEAN centrality, and also questions on ASEAN-China education, and the last one maybe about Malaysian domestic politics. Ian.
Okay, so very quickly.
Oh, we cannot hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Have you unmute your microphone?
I am unmuted. I'm not muted. Hello? Hello?
Can you try again?
Hello?
Yes, it's working.
Hello, it's working now? Yes. Okay, there seems to be a bit of a lag. All right, so quickly on ASEAN centrality. I mean, I understand the logic and the aspiration behind ASEAN centrality. ASEAN member states want agency, they want to work together in order for smaller and medium-sized states to be able to have more voice. That's completely understandable. But to the extent that there are collective action problems with any group of states, that makes any sort of concrete ability to set the agenda, to create initiative, a lot more difficult. And so what is happening, I would argue, is that you have both the PRC and the US, they'll talk the language of centrality and respecting centrality, but they'll use that centrality language to block the other side, to accuse the other side of not respecting ASEAN centrality, while they themselves push something forward. So the issue with ASEAN centrality, I would think it's not a matter of choosing sides or not choosing sides. It's a matter of being sidelined. What is likely or possible to happen is that the two major powers will present some sort of fait accompli, and the rest of us will just have to deal with it. That's the real risk. It's not about choosing sides or not choosing sides. I think that's a bit besides the point. In terms of education, yes, the PRC is trying to do a lot in terms of media outreach. It is providing vocational training in some places like the Luban Institutes in Indonesia. It is providing a number of scholarships. And by doing so, it is of course trying to spread its influence. That's totally fine. All major powers do it. The US does it as well. But I think where in ASEAN we probably need to think about and do something about, although I'm not optimistic about it, is to have some sort of clearer narrative about who we are and what we represent, what we stand for, because otherwise it's just going to be a matter of being pulled in different directions. We can claim centrality, but essentially, when you look at a donut hole, it's central, but it's also hollow. And finally, on the bit with Malaysian domestic politics, I don't think Mahathir is that big of an issue at present. What I think looms larger is that a lot of the seeming initiatives that Malaysia seems to be pushing, it cannot get away from this suspicion. Maybe it's not the case, but it cannot get away from this suspicion that whatever Anwar is doing is trying to raise his profile in order to help him with the next election. So it's about a lot of the initiatives that Anwar is pushing forward, it falls under the shadow of, is Anwar doing this for himself and for Pakatan Harapan, as opposed to something that is really beneficial to ASEAN. I mean, this is something that you can expect of many ASEAN chairs. There will be mixed incentives, and I think that is probably the larger issue with Malaysian domestic politics than Mahathir.
Okay, thank you Ian. Okay, I will open the second termin kedua. Ada pertanyaan untuk termin kedua? Oke, dua orang saja. Satu di sebelah kiri dan satu di sebelah kanan saya.
Thank you. Thank you, Mbak Rati. My name is Pandu from Research Center for Politics, BRIN. I have maybe a close illustration or about ASEAN centrality. ASEAN centrality, it can be in the driving seat. People always say that ASEAN in driving seat, but we can turn the steer left or right. But sometimes someone on the passenger seat tell us to turn right or turn left. So it's depends. The situation depends on how the issue is going or happening. My questions about the Malaysian leadership in ASEAN. First of all, and how Malaysia as leader of ASEAN this year face a core dilemma of ASEAN. What I'm saying about the core dilemma is how ASEAN a social community or political economy community or a social cultural community, it's like more efficient than reality. And this, I think the Malaysian leadership until this month of September, how this ASEAN community progress. It is just a vision or it's become a reality.
Okay.
And then second one, China influence to ASEAN.
Yeah.
How BRI or Belt Road Initiative dominates ASEAN connectivity or MPCASI or Master Plan of ASEAN.
Side of our world regions, I mean, like ASEAN has to be like the NATO in the east side. So what do you see our main goals, the main goals of the China itself? Is it like going to be like wants to being superior over the US and NATO, and wants to be like, okay, so our politics is way better, our economy and the BRI is way better than the European and the Western side of this our world. So I would like to having assumptions that I'm a student, and I would like to say, oh, it's going to be like the same when I go to to China, to Japan, to Korea, to the east side, that we don't require to have a visa, something like that. We can easily go into some different countries using our passport, just like in the west
Okay.
side. So what do you say about that? Thank you.
All right. So we have in total 3 questions. Mas Broto has its own questions already, and I will pass the first questions from Mas Pandu to Mbak Eva, and then the second questions on BRI to Ian. So then each of you will have 1 question, and please very brief, like 1 or 2 minutes. Ian or Mas Broto, you want to start first? Yeah, Ian dulu. Can we go to Ian first? Ian? Ian?
Yeah, sorry, I could not hear the question on the BRI.
Okay,
at all.
how BRI dominate ASEAN centrality? What's your view on that? ASEAN connectivity. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that. ASEAN connectivity.
Okay, so, okay, right, got it. So BRI with building critical infrastructure is clearly important for supporting the development of ASEAN connectivity. Now, the question is, when we have some of this connectivity, whether we are able to exercise our own agency with it, and also it's not just the initial building, right? It's the continued maintenance, servicing of the back to this small but beautiful. There's a lot more focus on digital infrastructure than the physical infrastructure. So both digital and
your voice is
needed,
breaking, Ian.
But to the extent there's a focus on digital infrastructure, not physical infrastructure, there's a question of whether the physical side will be met. Because as you know, the PRC, while they invest a lot, they also finance through loans and all that. But we still get, ASEAN still requires FDI from lots of different sources. So maintaining agency is important, but also I think to be over-reliant on financing from the PRC when the economy is slowing is also a question.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Mas Broto, kemudian Ibu Eva, silakan.
So if I understand your question correctly, whether we will have NATO in Southeast Asia? Whether ASEAN will be NATO? The problem with ASEAN is because it do not have a single enemy. And if you want to develop an alliance, military alliance in particular, then you need to have a single enemy, a single source of threat. I mean, from the survey by ICS, it's clear that some members of ASEAN consider China as a threat, but others consider US as a threat. So I don't think ASEAN will be like NATO in the future. And I don't think ASEAN will be able to talk about having a sort of military, a deeper military cooperations, because ASEAN is not designed to talk about security issues. We do have ASEAN Regional Forum, we do have IDMM, but it's only a coordinating mechanism. So it's only a platform that we can talk about these issues, but we never reach an agreement on that. But I think we had once joint exercise, but that's it. So my answer is relatively clear, no. It won't be a NATO. Don't worry about it.
Okay, Pak Pandu. First of all, I'm not quite sure what you mean by core dilemma, but maybe I will just try to answer that. Maybe, yes, Malaysia is facing challenges, of course, as a ASEAN chair, facing the challenges that we have already mentioned in this event today, like the competition between major powers, US, China, tariff war, and etc. But I think Malaysia is handling all the challenges as ASEAN chair is by maintaining the unity and centrality, like the theme they carried this year, like I was mentioned before, it's inclusivity and sustainability. So Malaysia, I think as a chair, they want to keep progress as ASEAN. They want to unite and centrality, like we mentioned, centrality ASEAN. And I think that Malaysia is as a chair, they keep the cooperation with China while also maintaining the cooperation with other countries. And I think that is the best way, the ASEAN way. We are not choosing sides. We are doing the cooperation constructively and evenly with every major powers that want to cooperate with ASEAN. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Eva. So I think we have concluded the Q&A session, but before we close the session, I would like to invite Dr. Johannes Herlianto to provide our closing statement about the position, closing statement about this seminar. Mas Jo? Yeah, so the closing statement will be from Mas Johannes Herlianto.
Ya, minta izin kepada Ibu dan Bapak untuk saya duduk kali ya, karena nggak ada yang video gitu. Kalau nggak ngumpet di sini. Baik, selamat sore Ibu dan Bapak sekalian. Kita sampai ke satu penghujung. Oh, di sini 8. Baik, oke, saya. As we know, China has begun to embrace the ASEAN since over 3 decades ago, and my friend and our friends, Professor Cheng Chui, like 20 years ago already wrote that even in 1991, Chinese Prime Minister Chen Chichen has attended the ASEAN's ministerial meeting, and China also became a consultative partner in the ASEAN meeting in 1992 and 1994. So according to Cheng Chui, China's participation and the presence in the multilateral forum initiated by the ASEAN in the 1990s was aimed to ward off any development that might jeopardize China's national interests. China worried that certain issues like Taiwan and South China Sea disputes might be included in such forum. Hence, China decided to participate and shape the development of the mechanism from within. As we have seen, 30 years afterward, China continues to show deep interest in the Southeast Asian regions and also in the ASEAN. as an organization. In the period of Qingdao, for instance, Southeast Asia became one of the destination regions of China Overseas Development Assistances. And since President Xi Jinping, China's eagerness to deepen its influence in Southeast Asia and thereby to engage the ASEAN as an organization has significantly increased. Particularly in the last 10 years, China has engaged in a range of economic, political, diplomatic, and socio-political initiatives with ASEAN, both with individual member states and as a regional bloc. Apparently, in order to enhance its international image and solidify its territorial claims in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. While pursuing various forms of cooperation, China has also strategically capitalized on its chairmanship. Therefore, in our view, understanding why and how ASEAN chairmanship matters for China's diplomacy is essential to grasping the role external powers have played in shaping the bloc and the region. The position of as the ASEAN chair is strategic, particularly in fostering consensus building, setting the agenda, and conducting conflict resolutions and diplomatic mediations. This, of course, became one of the reasons why Beijing has strategically targeted the ASEAN chair, among others through its foreign aid and investment, as a study by Tai Gyupling and Seng Un Kim found, between 2000 and 2017, China exclusively directed its development aid to the country holding the ASEAN chair, aiming to influence agenda setting in favor of its regional interests. So, for instance, during Cambodia's ASEAN chairmanship in 2012, when the bloc failed to produce a joint communique due to Cambodia's veto of any mention of the Scarborough Shoal standoff raised by the Philippines and Vietnam, scholars sought to find out the relationship between the incident and China's allocation of 500 million USD in loans to Cambodia. Now, I have to mention that in a study, which is currently still in progress, and led and chaired by Dr. Ratih Kabinawa, we found that China continues to make effort to influence the region through its relationship with ASEAN chair today. In 2025, during Malaysia's 5th term as the chair, ASEAN has experienced both challenges and progress, with China playing some influential roles. In its capacity as chair, Malaysia successfully led the ASEAN's agenda of strengthening ties with China and the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, by hosting the first ever ASEAN GCC China Summit in Kuala Lumpur in May 2025. While the summit may be seen largely symbolic, its implications are twofold. First, it took place amid heightened tensions in Gaza at the time when many Southeast Asian countries had publicly expressed support for the Palestinian cause. Second, China's active and leading participation in driving the success of the summit signals Beijing's commitment to advancing multilateralism, positioning itself in contrast to the US, which recently was widely seen as skeptical and multilateral arrangement. While the efficacy of the new trilateral grouping remains to be seen, China's involvement, facilitated through Malaysia's chairmanship, demonstrates its growing influence in shaping ASEAN's agenda amid increasing geopolitical tension. Dr. Kabinawa also found out that China's influence in shaping the region's political security architecture via ASEAN chairmanship is also evident in its intermediary role during the recent border dispute between Cambodia and Thailand. The 5 days armed standoff rooted in long-standing tensions over territorial and temple claims opened the door for both China and the US to step in as mediators, an initiative coordinated under Malaysia's ASEAN chairmanship. Following multiple rounds of discussion, Cambodia and Thailand agreed to cease fire, with China and US acting as key interlocutors, showing their strong ties with both parties. While the US has long been recognized as conflict intermediary, China is a relatively new player. Its role in this ceasefire helped lay the groundwork for its image as a future mediator in regional conflict. In the view of Dr. Kabinawa, the conflict and subsequent ceasefire carry two key implications. First, ASEAN's limited capacity for conflict management and crisis prevention has created space for external power to step in. In the case of Thailand-Cambodia dispute, their involvement marked a diplomatic success for ASEAN, particularly Malaysia, which fulfilled its role as chair in facilitating mediations, balancing between competing great power interests. However, in conflicts where China is a direct party, such as the South China Sea, ASEAN's institutional weakness could lead to outcomes that disadvantage regional states. Given the conflicting interests between China and the other claimants, for instance, ASEAN's muted responses, ASEAN's muted response to China's recent aggressive actions against the Philippine Coast Guard in the South China Sea reflects the bloc's paralysis in the face of competing member state interests tied to Beijing. Secondly, the neutrality of the ASEAN chair plays a critical role in managing potential conflicts, both within and beyond the region. Malaysia's balancing act between China and the US, supported by its established diplomatic credibility, contributed to securing the ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia, though it did not guarantee a long-term conflict resolution. This underscores the strategic importance of ASEAN chairmanship and how China's engagement with the chair can help advance its long-term interests in Southeast Asia. And finally, please allow me to use this opportunity to thank all of you who have spared your precious time to join this seminar. In particular, I would like to thank Pak Fat Nabils, who tidak hadir ya, but the director of Center and Policy Strategy Agency for ASEAN Pacific and Africa regions, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whose helps and supports have enabled this seminar to be conducted. All the speakers, of course, first of all, Mbak Eva Situmorang, Professor Ian Chung, and Professor Broto Wardoyo, and Dr. Rati Kabinawa, and I also thank you, Lieutenant General Hilman Hadi, and all colleagues from the Executive Office of the President. Pak Dino Kusnadi, thank you very much for attending this seminar. And also I would like to thank all of the seniors and friends who have supported us in various ways. And thank you very much, and I hope that we can continue discussion like this in the near future. Thank you.
Baik, terima kasih kami sampaikan kepada para pembicara atas materi yang dibawakan. Moderator kita juga Ibu Ratih yang telah memandu diskusi sore ini, dan juga kepada Bapak Yohanes atas paparan penutup yang luar biasa. Terima kasih juga kami sampaikan kepada para tamu dan hadirin sekalian yang telah mengikuti rangkaian diskusi sore hari ini. Harap untuk Bapak Ibu hadirin yang terhormat tetap di tempat, karena setelah ini kita akan memasuki sesi penutupan acara yang kemudian dilanjutkan dengan acara makan malam yang telah kami persiapkan. Pertama-tama kita akan memasuki sesi pemberian apresiasi kepada para seksi dokumentasi. Kami persilahkan untuk mempersiapkan diri mengabadikan momen ini. Pertama-tama saya mengundang Bapak Yohanes Herlianto selaku Ketua Forum Sinologi Indonesia untuk memberikan apresiasi kepada Ibu Eva Kurniati Situmorang. Baik, terima kasih Ibu. Selanjutnya saya mengundang Bapak Broto Wardoyo untuk menerima apresiasi dari Bapak Yohanes juga. Bapak Yohanes harap tetap di tempat. Ya, terakhir saya mengundang Ibu Ratih untuk menerima apresiasi dari Bu Yohanes. Baik, kemudian saya mengundang para pembicara juga, Ibu Eva dan Bapak Broto untuk berfoto bersama dengan Ibu Ratih dan Bapak Yohanes. Baik, saya juga ingin ingatkan Bapak Ibu untuk jangan lupa follow, pantau dan nantikan terus acara seminar kami selanjutnya melalui akun Instagram kami di @sinoforum. Baik, untuk mengakhiri acara diskusi, ya, saya mengundang para pembicara juga kembali, moderator serta teman-teman panitia pelaksana untuk bergabung bersama hadirin yang terhormat karena kita akan mengabadikan momen ini. Seksi dokumentasi dipersilakan untuk mengambil posisinya. Ya. Mungkin untuk Bapak Ibu yang di belakang boleh kita berdiri, kameranya ada di depan sini. Boleh dari Bapak Slamet. Baik, terima kasih. Demikian rangkaian acara seminar kita sore hari ini. Saya Stefani, mewakili rekan-rekan FSI pamit undur diri. Sampai jumpa di acara seminar kami selanjutnya.